We hear a ton about blockchains for things like NFTs and social media, but what about the trillions, and I mean trillions of dollars locked up in global trade? Today we're diving into a completely different kind of beast, a blockchain built from the ground up for the super demanding world of institutional finance. We're going to break down the 4 strategic moats that make the XDC Enterprise Blockchain such a unique player in this high-stakes game.
But that brings up a huge question, right? If blockchain is so revolutionary, why is it the entire global financial system already running on it? What's the holdup?
Well, it turns out the world of institutional finance has some major problems with your typical blockchain. We're talking about a fundamental language barrier between the old systems and the new ones, an absolute non-negotiable need for privacy that public chains just can't provide, wildly unpredictable costs that make planning impossible, and frankly, a real lack of speed where it matters most.
So in our explainer today, we're going to see how the XDC network was designed to turn every single one of those problems into a strength by building 4 very distinct moats. We'll cover how it speaks the language of banks, how it balances privacy with transparency, offers costs that are both low and predictable, and delivers serious enterprise-grade speed. Then we'll look at the foundation of trust holding it all together before we zoom out for the big picture. Let's get into it.
First up, moat number 1, speaking bank language. And you can really think of this as the Rosetta Stone for modern finance. The key term to understand here is ISO 2022. Now, this is not some obscure crypto jargon. This is the global standard for financial messaging. It's the language spoken by giants like Swift, by the core systems running inside the banks, and by the software that powers massive corporations. It is, quite literally, the lifeblood of traditional finance. And here's the crucial part. XDC is built from day one to be compliant with this standard. What does that mean? It means it doesn't walk up to a bank and say, hey, rip out your multi-billion-dollar system you've used for decades. No way. Instead, it acts as a conduit, a bridge that connects the old world with the new. That idea, integration, not replacement, is an absolute game changer for adoption.
All right, let's move on to our second moat, which builds right on top of that first one. Privacy meets transparency. This is all about getting the best of both worlds. You see, banks have a massive issue with public blockchains. You just can't post sensitive client info or your secret pricing data out in the open for the whole world to see. It's a deal breaker. XDC's answer to this is what's called a hybrid architecture. It cleverly combines private subnetworks, where all the confidential stuff can happen, with a public ledger that's used for the final verification.
So, how does that actually work? Well, it's pretty slick. First, an institution does its thing on a private subnetwork. All that sensitive data stays completely confidential, exactly as it should. But then, and this is the magic part, a cryptographic proof of that transaction gets sent to the public ledger. It doesn't reveal any of the sensitive details, but it proves the transaction happened, immutably. The result? You get the privacy that banks absolutely demand with the unbreakable security that only a blockchain can deliver.
Okay, on to moat number 3. Predictable, low costs. This is all about making this technology actually make sense on a balance sheet.
Let's be real, you cannot run a global trade business on a network where transaction fees can just randomly spike to $50 or even $100. For any serious institution, that's a total non-starter. The technical paper that describes the XDC network points to its nearly non-existent gas costs.
And when they say nearly non-existent, they are not exaggerating. The average transaction fee on XDC is, well, look at that number. It's a tiny, almost invisible fraction of a single penny. With costs that low, high-volume stuff like supply chain finance or cross-border payments suddenly become not just possible, but incredibly economical. But you know what's just as important as the low cost? It's the stability. The research highlights XDC's excellent predictability in terms of costs. Think about it. If you're a CFO trying to forecast your expenses for the next quarter, knowing your transaction costs won't suddenly explode is absolutely critical.
And that brings us to our final moat, number 4, enterprise-grade speed. Because in global finance, you need things to settle in seconds, not drag on for days.
So let's just look at the raw performance stats. You've got a max throughput of 2,000 transactions per second, an average block time of around 2 seconds. That's fast. But the number that really matters for finance is that last one, transaction finality. That's the moment a transaction is 100% locked in, confirmed, and can never be reversed. On XDC, that happens in about 30 seconds.
And this is where the real-world impact just slaps you in the face. This instant block finality completely transforms cross-border payments. A process that used to take 3 to 5 business days, which is an eternity in modern finance, can now be done, dusted, and irreversible in less time than it takes to brew a cup of coffee.
So we've seen the 4 big moats. We've seen the features, but all of it rests on one critical foundation: trust. How do we actually know this whole network is secure and decentralized?
To answer that, we need to look at a cool metric called the Nakamoto coefficient. Now, in simple terms, this just measures how many different people or groups you'd need to get together to successfully attack the network. The higher the number, the better. It means power is more spread out, and the network is way more secure.
So what is XDC's number? It's 103. Now just think about that for a second. An attacker would need to find and successfully compromise 103 separate, independent validator entities, all at the same time, just to disrupt the network. That is an incredibly high bar for security.
And hey, this isn't just some marketing number they pulled out of a hat. This image here? It's taken directly from the research paper, showing the actual calculation. It's all based on how power is distributed across all the nodes that secure the network. This is verifiable proof of just how decentralized the network really is.
Okay, let's pull all these pieces together and zoom out to the big picture. With these 4 moats built up, what is XDC actually for? What's its purpose?
So, the single most important takeaway is this. XDC is a Layer 1 blockchain, a foundational network just like Bitcoin or Ethereum. But, and this is a big but, it is not trying to be the next home for meme coins or NFT art projects. It is laser-focused and optimized for one thing: tokenizing real-world assets. It's being built to become the fundamental plumbing, the infrastructure for the future digitalization of global trade finance.
And that leaves us with a final, really fascinating question to think about. As the trillions of dollars in real-world assets finally start to move on-chain, are we going to see these kinds of specialized, purpose-built blockchains become the new, true foundation of finance?